What it does say. So we would like to read Noah this morning. Starting from chapter 6, verse 1. When men began to increase in number on earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said,
My spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days will be 120 years.
The Nephilim were on earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. The Lord was grieved that he had made man on the earth, and his heart was filled with pain. So the Lord said,
I will wipe mankind, whom I have created, from the face of the earth, men and animals, and creatures that move along the ground, and birds of the air, for I am grieved that I have made them.
But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. This is the account of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah,
I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Make a roof for it and finish the ark to within 18 inches of the top. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I am going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has breath of life in it, everything on earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons, and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and stored away as food for you and for them.
Noah did everything just as God commanded him. Then the Lord said to Noah,
Go into the ark, you and your whole family, because I have found you righteous in this generation. Take with you 7 of every kind of clean animal, a male and its mate, and 2 of every kind of unclean animal, a male and its mate, and also 7 of every kind of bird, male and female, to keep their various kinds alive throughout the earth. 7 days from now I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will wipe from the face of the earth every living creature I have made.
And Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the floodwaters came on the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Pairs of clean and unclean animals, of birds and all creatures that move along the ground, male and female, came to Noah and entered the ark as God commanded Noah. After the 7 days the floodwaters came on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the 2nd month, on that day all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened, and rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On that very day Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark. They had with them every wild animal according to its kind, all livestock according to their kinds, every creature that moves along the ground according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, everything with wings. Pairs of creatures that have the breath of life in them came to Noah and entered the ark. The animals going in were male and female of every living thing, as God had commanded Noah. Then the Lord shut him in. For 40 days the flood kept coming on the earth, and as the waters increased, they lifted the ark high above the earth. The waters rose and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. They rose greatly on the earth, and all the high mountains under the entire heavens were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of more than 20 feet. Every living thing that moved on the earth perished: birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind. Everything on dry land that had the breath of life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out. Men and animals and the creatures that move along the ground and the birds of the air were wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those with him in the ark. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and the livestock that were with him in the ark, and he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded. Now the springs of the deep and the floodgates of the heavens had been closed, and the rain had stopped falling from the sky. The water receded steadily from the earth. At the end of the 150 days, the water had gone down, and on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to recede until the 10th month, and on the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains became visible. After 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the ark and sent out a raven, and it kept flying back and forth until the water had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove to see if the water had receded from the surface of the ground. But the dove could find no place to set its feet, because there was water all over the surface of the earth. So it returned to Noah in the ark. He reached out his hand and took the dove and brought it back to himself in the ark. He waited 7 more days and again sent out the dove from the ark. When the dove returned to him in the evening, there in its beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. Then Noah knew that the water had receded from the earth. He waited 7 more days and sent the dove out again, but this time it did not return to him. By the first day of the first month of Noah's 601st year, the water had dried up from the earth. Noah then removed the covering from the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was dry. By the 27th day of the 2nd month, the earth was completely dry. Then God said to Noah,
"Come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, and all the creatures that move along the ground, so they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in number upon it."
So Noah came out, together with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives, all the animals and all the creatures that move along the ground and all the birds, everything that moves on the earth came out of the ark, one kind after another. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of all the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart,
"Never again will I curse the ground because of man, even though every inclination of his heart is evil from childhood. And never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease."
Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them,
"Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you will fall upon all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds of the air, upon every creature that moves along the ground, and upon all fish of the sea. They are given into your hands. Everything that lives and moves will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything. But you must not eat the meat that has its life blood still in it. And for your lifeblood I will surely demand an accounting. I will demand an accounting from every animal, and from each man too I will demand an accounting for the life of his fellow man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made man. As for you, be fruitful and increase in number. Multiply on the earth and increase upon it."
Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him,
"I now establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that was with you, the birds, the livestock, and all the wild animals, all those who came out of the ark with you, every living creature on earth. I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be cut off by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth.
And God said,
This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth, and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all living creatures of every kind. Never again will the waters become a flood to destroy all life. Whenever the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and all living creatures of every kind on the earth.
So God said to Noah,
This is the sign of the covenant I have established between me and all life on earth.
I was informed before church that Jeff went online and found out that the movie maker used as part of the basis for his film the book of Enoch. And the book of Enoch is not in the Bible. I think most of you probably know that. It's not in the Apocrypha either. It's one of those false writings. There's a lot of people that wanted to become known back in the 1st and 2nd centuries and would write a book giving their interpretation. You know, some things are never changed. Movie makers do the same thing. They want to give their interpretation. But these people would write their interpretation or their take on the stories from the Bible, then put a famous person's name on it. So they didn't make up their own name like Samuel Clemens took the name Mark Twain. It would be like Samuel Clemens taking the name George Washington or Thomas Jefferson, something like that. So people would write a book and put some biblical character's name as the author. Enoch. Dan Brown, who did the Da Vinci Code, if you're familiar with those movies, he wrote from the point of view of the Gospel of Thomas, which is not a true gospel. Okay, so these writings, there's a lot of writings out there that are not true and not of the Bible, and that's where a lot of the movies actually come from, evidently. But the first weekend, Noah proved to be a pretty popular movie. The hype did its job. A lot of people went to see it. It was the #1 selling movie for the first weekend it was out. We read the story. I'd like to just point out a few of the details that you won't get from the movie. As you listen to the story, you might have heard these things. First of all, Noah was 480 years old when God spoke to him. He first warned about the flood. He gave him 120 years warning. The flood was when Noah was 600, therefore he was 480 years already. He was 500 when all 3 of his sons had been born. They were 100 when the flood came. And Noah himself lived to be 950 years. He was the 3rd oldest person ever, older even than Adam. Only Methuselah and Jared lived longer than he did. Adam's grandson, Enosh, could have met Noah. Adam's grandson. Just think of that. There were 10 generations from the beginning of creation. We're going by the Bible's genealogy in Genesis 5. And Adam's grandson could have known Noah. Going the other direction, Noah himself lived long enough, he could have known Abraham's father, Terah. And Japheth was Noah's firstborn son. He wasn't the little boy that we saw in the movie. He was the oldest son, actually. Of course, all 3 of them were married. And then Shem, and then Ham was the youngest. Okay, so there's a lot of differences. One of the big differences in the movie was the Nephilim. The movie referred to them as, what did it call them now? Watchers, the Watchers. Some of us call them the stone people, okay? But the Nephilim, it comes from a word that simply means fallen ones. Fallen most likely from grace, fallen from the worship of God, fallen from the blessing of God. Seth's line was the line of people that stayed true to God. That's what the Bible teaches us. So that's what they were fallen from, probably not fallen from outer space. God spoke clearly to Noah, and not just once. Okay, Noah, obviously, I guess all people have dreams. But where Noah got his information about the flood, the ark, and so forth, according to the biblical record, God just told him. God spoke to him conversationally from time to time. And Noah and his whole family, 8 people in all, entered the ark. And there were no stowaways. Noah sacrificed some animals and birds to the Lord. And the animals and birds are kind of almost sacred in the movie, but they were there for a purpose in creation. That was to serve as part of the beautiful earth that God has given to us, to have stewardship, but dominion over, but a kind dominion, a lord-like, God-like dominion over. But Noah sacrificed animals and birds after the flood. And God established an eternal covenant. You probably remember reading about the rainbow. We all love to see the rainbow because it reminds us that God saved Noah and he'll save us too, and he'll never again destroy the earth with a flood. This covenant, of course, is still in force. We know from other scriptures, of course, that the world will one day be destroyed or transformed by fire. That will be when we have a new heaven and a new earth. The Lord Jesus will come again, and all things will be made new, and that is the day we look forward to. Also, after the flood, God gave mankind animals as food, but also demanded an accounting for the shedding of human blood. So you've heard the story read, and I've pointed out some of the things that we don't often think about, some of the things probably already know, some of the facts of the story. But the important part really is, so what? What does that mean to me? What's that mean to us today? Even the story of Noah itself is an old story. It's a story in the Old Testament way before there were even Jews, way before there was Abraham, much less children of Abraham. What does it mean for us? What can we learn that's useful for us today? I think one thing that's most important is that we can learn a lot about Noah's true character from the pages of the Bible. And that's what I want to focus on, more so than the details of the story. Noah is one of the giants of the faith. And if we forget that, we're missing some important points that we can use in our own life. He's a true hero, someone we would do well to imitate. Some people today point out that one of the problems with our society today is that we don't have heroes, and the heroes that we have are so flawed, we would do well to avoid their example, not to imitate it. We emulate athletes and actors and actresses and so forth, and these people live such horrible lives. But whereas in the old days, we might imitate George Washington. There was a time when most kids would love to have been named George because he was the father of our country, or Thomas, like Thomas Jefferson, John after John Adams. And these were the people who were made heroes for good reason, for doing good, for accomplishing something in the eyes of God and for our nation. Noah would be in that category. If we want to name our kids something, if we want to pattern our lives after someone who's a good example, who can keep us strong in the faith, Noah is a great one. And so I'd like to focus on just a few scriptures, most of them actually outside Genesis, that describe Noah. First of all, from Genesis chapter 6, verses 8 and 9. The Bible says, Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Why did he find favor in the eyes of the Lord? It's explained in verse 9. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked with God. It's as if the Bible can't say enough good things about Noah. That's why he found favor, because he was righteous and blameless and walked with God. Righteous because what he did, everything he did was good. It was true. It was of value. Blameless in that no one could say anything evil about him that anyone could believe. I think we all know people like that. Oh, I can't believe that about him. He'd never do that, or she would never do that. That's the way it was with Noah. You couldn't say a bad word about him. And he walked with God. And that might be the highest compliment of all. Any idea how many people in the Bible are described in that way, that they walked with God? Anybody want to guess? Anybody know? 2. Noah and Enoch. Enoch walked with God, and he was no more, for the Lord took him. That's a pretty close relationship, because Enoch never died. He went right to heaven. Noah is the other person the Bible describes as walked with God. We talk about Jesus coming in and dining with us, and that's a wonderful picture. We invite people to eat with us who are close to us. In the same way, we walk with people, and walking is a kind of figure of speech of going through life together, closely bound up with one as a true friend. And that's the way Noah was with God. Noah was not a bumbler. He wasn't someone full of doubt. He wasn't someone who was fearful or puzzled about the will of his Creator. The Creator who made the earth and the skies and the heavens and the seas and everything in them. He knew the Creator's will because he was so well acquainted with the Creator himself. He walked with him and talked with him. It wasn't the line of a hymn for him. It wasn't a pious phrase. It was described his daily life. And he was like the Creator just because he kept such close company with him. Proverbs teaches that we become like the character of the people. That we become like the people we keep company with. If you want to be an angry person, just make friends with a lot of angry people and hang out with them, and you'll get to be an angry person. If you want to be an immoral person, just go hang out with some of them. It'll rub off. But if you want to be godly, hang out with God. Walk with Christ. Abide in Him. That should be our goal. Seek first the kingdom of God. The first and foremost thing is to seek God Himself. We'll be in His kingdom if we're with Him. And that's what Noah did. He walked with God. He let God's word abide in his heart, the very same thing that Jesus told us to do. Let my words abide in you, and you will ask anything in my name, and your joy will be complete. That's what the Lord Jesus promised us. So Noah was righteous and blameless and walked with God, a man of godly character. Secondly, from Genesis 6, verse 22, and also 7, verse 5. Something else the Bible repeats here. First of all, Noah did everything just as God commanded him. And just 5 verses later, Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. You think the Bible wanted to get a point across? Twice it says Noah did everything. He did all that God commanded him. Noah was a man of obedience to God. As the saying goes, if God would have said jump, Noah would say how high? Noah was a man of faith because faith is showed by our obedience. Jesus, when he was again walking the earth, shortly after the Sermon on the Mount, he was going from place to place, and a centurion came up to him and said, Lord, my servant lies at home paralyzed and in terrible suffering. Jesus said to him, I will go and heal him. The centurion replied, Lord, I don't deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was astonished and said to those following him, I tell you the truth, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. Obedience is a sign of faith, according to the lips of Jesus himself. Noah was a man of great love also. For obedience is not only a sign of faith, it's a sign of love. Jesus said 3 times in John chapter 14, 3 times at the Last Supper, if you love me, you will keep my words. If you love me, you will obey my commandments. The one who obeys me is the one who loves me. Jesus couldn't emphasize how much love is shown by obedience. James says twice in his short letter, faith without works is dead. Noah showed his faith and his love nonstop for 120 years by building that ark, and no doubt by many other actions his whole life long. Remember, as Jesus ended the Sermon on the Mount, he told the parable of the wise and the foolish builder, and he said, it's not just those who hear the word of God, but those who hear and obey that are the wise. God's word is the source of blessing only if we keep it. Noah was a man of obedience to God. And then Noah was a man who feared God. The Bible says in several places, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Psalm 111, verse 10, Proverbs 9, verse 10 are two of those places. I'd like to turn to Hebrews chapter 11, and I might mention too that if you're in Hebrews 11, you are a great person of faith. That's the Faith Hall of Fame in the Bible. But I'd like to read chapter 11, verse 7. By faith Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear built an ark to save his family. There is a good fear of God. We don't emphasize the fear of God so much in today's world. That doesn't mean it's not something we should do. The Bible talks about it quite a lot. Fear God. Jesus himself said, don't fear those who can kill the body but can't touch your soul, but fear him who has the power to destroy both soul and body in hell, who is God the Father. At the very least, and this is a mature fear of God, is when we fear to do something that would harm the reputation of our Heavenly Father, something that would break his heart. We don't want to disappoint those whom we love. Why should we want to disappoint God as well? That also is a type of fear. But Noah feared God and built an ark. Noah knew that judgment was coming. God was clear about that. And in holy fear, the Bible says, built an ark. He took the appropriate action to counteract that fear. Do you dread the thought of disobeying God? Do you fear breaking God's heart? Do you fear judgment to come? That should influence the way we live our lives. Even if we simply live as if God is not important. Noah feared God, and we ought to do the same. Also, Noah was a witness for God. I'd like to continue reading in Hebrews 7. I'll read the whole verse this time. By faith, Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear built an ark to save his family. By his faith he condemned the world and became heir of righteousness that comes by faith. And also in 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 5 through 9. I'll just read 5 and 9. If God did not spare the ancient world when he brought the flood on its ungodly people, but protected Noah, a preacher of righteousness, and 7 others, if this is so, then the Lord knows how to rescue godly men from trials and hold the unrighteous for the day of judgment while continuing their punishment. Of course, we could get more into the fear of God with all this talk about judgment here, but the point I'm making now is that Noah witnessed for God. The Bible calls him a preacher of righteousness. We know him as a builder of an ark. A boat that big was never built again until the 19th century. Just think of that. And yet that was not even close to his greatest accomplishment. But he was a man of faith and love and obedience and a preacher of righteousness. Those people knew what he was doing, or at least they heard. Noah preached not only by his actions, but by his words. And by both those things, he condemned the world around him. Now, we don't have to stand on a busy street corner. We've probably all seen that. And if you've been in big cities, where you see everything, you've heard of these people. They'll have a big King James in one hand and call down curses on people as they drive by. Now, I'm not going to say that they don't have a calling for that. Some people probably do. Some people can be effective. But we don't have to do that to be a preacher of righteousness. We can be a gentle witness in our own way. But by godly speech and righteous living, however God calls you to fulfill that, people without Christ can feel the condemnation of a guilty conscience. They can be pricked in their heart by the conviction of the Holy Spirit, by words and by deeds. And it is the Holy Spirit convicting people through our words and our actions that causes them to turn to Christ. It's not we that convert them. I remember reading about Dwight Moody one time, and there was an agnostic or an atheist in his that had heard him one time and didn't like him. And he told him, well, I just saw one of your converts just the other day on the street, and he wasn't any better than a common drunk. And Moody said, that's just the problem. He was my convert. He wasn't the Lord's convert. But when we preach the righteousness, when we preach God, when we preach the Lord Jesus Christ, God can do a work in their hearts. And that's what Noah did as well. The Bible also mentions Noah in another connection. But before I read those scriptures, let me ask you this. Just how bad do you think the world was in Noah's time? How bad was it really? How evil were those people? I believe, according to the Bible, we would be right at home in Noah's day. I don't think it was significantly different than the people of today or any other time. The other two references to Noah are found then in Ezekiel and also in Matthew. In Ezekiel chapter 14 is where I'd like to turn first. Ezekiel 14. In Ezekiel 14, the prophet was predicting the soon downfall of Jerusalem. Ezekiel was already in captivity. He had already been exiled, but the final destruction had not yet come. And here's what he said in verse 12. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, if a country sins against me by being unfaithful, and I stretch out my hand against it to cut off its food supply and send famine upon it and kill its men and their animals, even if these three men, Noah, Daniel, and Job, were in it, they could save only themselves by their righteousness, says the sovereign Lord. And the Lord went on to give other scenarios, the four classic judgments. If I send wild beasts, if I bring a sword against that country, if I send a plague into that land and pour out my wrath, as surely as I live, declares the Lord, even if Noah, Daniel, and Job were in it, they could save neither son nor daughter. They would save only themselves by their righteousness. And so the Bible holds up Noah and Daniel and Job as people of faith and people of righteousness, virtuous people, some of the most righteous men that ever lived. And we wonder, how bad was that kind of world when Noah could only save his wife, his sons, and their wives. 8 people were saved only in the flood. But this should make us come up short when the Lord said through Ezekiel, in Judah no one would be saved. If Noah lived in Judah 600 BC, only Noah would be saved. I don't think that society in Judah was any better than Noah's society. And can it be any better now? In Matthew 24, part of the end times discourse, Jesus is warning the disciples and us about the second coming. Jesus said, no one knows about that day or hour, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. Life just goes on and on and on. And we see politicians and government officials making the same silly mistakes year after decade after century that has always been made. It's as if people never learn anything. Our technology goes up like this and our morals like this or even like that. Would Noah be any less at home now? Would we be any less at home in his day? I think it's all the same. Sin is sin is sin, and we're all wicked. The Bible says we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. There is no one who does righteous, no, not one. So things will continue until the end. And so the main question I think that Noah has for us, with all these other things, we need to abide in Christ. We need to be people of faith and obedience and of love. We need to be a witness. But are we ready for Christ? That, I think, is the greatest lesson of all. Judgment will come again. The Lord Jesus promised us that. There will come a day when He's coming again. Are we ready for that day? Upon what or upon whom do you base your life? Is it upon Christ, the solid rock, or something else? Are you destined for heaven or for hell? Or do we even know? John wrote his gospel, he said, so that you might know Jesus as the Messiah, and by believing in Him may have life in His name. He wrote his letter, he said, so that you may know that you have eternal life. That's the purpose of the Bible, not so that we can just turn to Him and hope for the best, cross our fingers and hope to die, that you may know that you have eternal life. That's why we have the Bible. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and the wages of sin is death. Noah was a man who walked with God. Noah was a man who feared the Lord. Noah was a man of great faith and deep love and great obedience. Noah was a true witness for God. The ark, then, is a figure of Christ. In classic literature, it's commonly said that a man's height is 10 times his thickness. Now, like if you're laying down and from front to back here, some of us have trouble, keeping that, but supposedly we're 10 times as tall as we are thick, and we're 6 times as tall as we are wide. That's the classic human dimension. And amazingly, that's the exact dimensions of the ark. That's the proportions of the ark. The door of the ark was in the side. And just as that was so, Jesus' side also was pierced, giving His lifeblood for the nations. Just as Noah and the animals entered the side of the ark, we too can enter Jesus' side into His heart. And so the ark can remind us that on the wood of the cross, Jesus, not Noah, gave His life for us that we might be saved. If we put our whole trust in Jesus, His death on the cross, His body and blood that He shed for us, we will be saved and we can walk with God. May this be true for us in Jesus' name. Amen.